Okay, so first and foremost, I want to welcome everybody to the Executive Office of Dr. Black B. Inc. This is one of my rooms where I do give out these lectures. Um, don't come on as often as I used to because there's just so much that's going on that doesn't need to be explained. But I just want to make sure that I still come on and keep in contact with those who are normally looking forward to the information that we have to provide. And this is one of those rooms where we used to talk about it a while back. I kind of fell back from it because normally when people have this discussion, we get into these debates where it's Africans versus Americans, and this is not what this is about. If anybody who knows me, right, they know that I'm not about division. I am all about unity, but more importantly, I am more about the truth. Okay, I'm all about the truth, and I believe that there's only one enemy, and that enemy is the one that has lied to all of us. Whether you're indigenous to America, whether you are indigenous to Africa, wherever you indigenous to wherever you're from, the whole point is there is a lie that has been told to humanity, and it is just now that we are actually coming into the unveiling of that lie in certain degrees. And I'm here to share some of the truth based on the lies that have been told. Okay. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not here to say that the slave trade did not happen. That is not my job. Okay, I'm not here to do that at all. What I'm here to discuss is the fact that there were indigenous people who were here already who became enslaved, and just like those who were stolen from Africa and they lost their history, many people were stolen from here in America and they lost their history. So they share a common enemy and they share a common history. Okay? So, what are these lies? What are these lies that these enemies have told us? Well, first and foremost, as I've mentioned, just about any history book you read, they talk about millions and millions of enslaved people within the Americas. Now, as I was asking, the question is, where would you begin to research the where the origin of these millions and millions of people that were enslaved came from? Where would you begin to do that research? Well, first and foremost, if you know anything about these people that actually carried this thing out, you know that they were heavily involved in commerce, finance. They were moving people as if they were products. So, as the same way they would insure products from being damaged or destroyed along that path of travel, the same way they worried about people that would not make it. So, according to uh, record books, there were 12.5 million slaves that traveled along the transatlantic slave trade, and about 2 million or so died. So, which means that about 10 million actually made it to this side of the world, which they call the New World. Now, these shipments had to be insured. These shipments had to have some record of origin from what nations they came from, where they were headed. All of these things had to be recorded and documented, and they were. So, two of the most prominent scientists that actually did this research, a lot of people quote them and use their information, and that information is readily available online or what have you. All right. Now I'll post some links. Let me put my link tree up there real quick. But I'm going to post some links in the chat as we get into this discussion. And these links will all be uh, basically references that you can use to go do your own research. on your own so you could fact check everything that I'm telling you. I don't want anybody in here to take what I'm saying on face value and say Dr. Black said. No. Anything that I say, I want you to be able to go back, check it out for yourself, research it on your own, and say, wow, he was telling the truth. That'll make me more happier than you just taking what I say and saying, he said this, he said this. Okay? Now, there's a database. It's called the Slave Voyage database. They actually have done the most research on these ships of slaves that traveled all over the world. Okay? They know the ship owners, they know the years that they traveled, the itinerary, the people, the dates, all of that stuff you can find. So they actually have some tables that they tabulated from all of this information that they have, and you can actually access it. I'm going to put this table, the table link, in the chat for those who want to follow it. Okay, it's called the Slave Voyages, www.slavevoyages.org. Okay, that is the first site. I'm going to be putting a list of them in the chat really quick. Hold on a second. Here we go. Now, these are scientists who have been studying this stuff for years upon years. Okay? All right. So now, if you look at this, I just put it in the chat. If you look at this database, whenever you get a chance to get around to it, the point of focus is mainland North America. Mainland North America. That is the point of focus right now. Now, when you look at those records for mainland North America, whenever you get around to it, the most important part, number one, is the totals. Okay? The totals. And this can be fact checked from several different places, because actually the numbers vary depending on where you get your numbers from, but the most identifiable number that keeps coming up is about 300 some odd thousand. Okay, 300 some odd thousand. And I just want to put that number in context for you. Within the entire range of the transatlantic slave trade, okay, as I mentioned earlier, it was about 12.5 million, whatever that number was, million number was. Well, we're not dealing with that when we're talking about mainland North America, which is the current day United States of America that we know. That number, 360,000, according to the table right here, that number 360,000 is for between 300 and 400 years. Okay? Understand me. But that number that I'm telling you about right now is about 300 and 400 years, in between, somewhere, depending on what year you want to start. Now, the first significant, I won't even say significant, but the first recorded slaves, according to this table, that came off of ships was in 1672. And at that time, it was only 180 slaves that came off of that ship that actually touched the soil of mainland North America. Right? That was the first recorded one. Now, again, this continued for many, many years, 300 some odd years. I think the last slave ship after they abolished it, sometime in the mid 1800s. After that, there was a total of 360,000 slaves that actually traveled from slave ships from Africa to the shores of North America. Now, I'm not a mathematician. I think as far as I went in math was pre-calculus, but I can do addition, subtraction, and multiplication and division. That is something I can do. And I also can do averages, a little bit of statistics. Okay. Now, I'm not even going to go into the, you know, the the other part of it, the game, okay, where you start figuring out certain rates or anything. But I just want to give you an example really quick. And this is not saying this applies to this, but I just want to give you this example so you can understand what I'm saying. So we're talking about 360,000 slaves. We're talking about approximately 360 years. Okay. So now let's just say, even if we averaged that out to 1,000, that's what we're talking about every year. Okay. 1,000 slaves coming, well, 1,000 Africans being kidnapped and traveling on a boat coming over every year. Now, of course, the numbers vary very widely. It wasn't 1,000 a year, but I'm just saying, if we just took that number, 360,000, and divided it by the number of years that they say that the transatlantic slave trade actually operated, they come around 300 and some odd years as well. So you're talking about, on average, 1,000 slaves per year. Now, mind you, over a period of we don't know anybody that lived to be 300 years old. So every single one of those slaves that they brought over can be calculated into it to say, hey, these people were here the whole entire time. No, we know that the life expectancy, especially around that time, was not long at all, especially if they were slaves. This is just a fact. Okay? But we're not even going to go that route with it. We're going to go another route. We're going to go a more logical route, because we know it wasn't that way. Slavery built up over a period of years in America, and we're going to find out exactly how today. So, as I mentioned, the first number of slaves really didn't start really hitting hard till around maybe the early 1700s, where they started bringing in thousands of slaves. Now, again, that wasn't a significant number, and in actuality, according to these historians, they say the average was around 2,100. Now, here's the two things that I want us to take into account. First and foremost, the life expectancy, the birth rate, the mortality rate, and as well as the replacement rate. All of these rates need to be considered, okay? And in addition to that, when you compare these records with the census, and you compare these records with some of the other things that'll become, I'll go over them as we go along. But when you look at these numbers, there's a math. The math ain't mathing, as we say in slang. There's a math that is not being accounted for, and that's what we need to get at. Okay? Because when you look at the census, when you look at how they were counting slaves, when you look at the slave ship records, okay, the numbers that they have for mainland North America could never possibly amount to, they said in 1790, and I'm going to tell you where I'm getting this from, because I really want us to dig into this, because for too long, we've been told a lie, and very few people have actually dug into the truth of this. But there's one reference here, a guy by the name Aaron O'Neill. He published this June 21st, 2022, and he was talking about the black and slave population of the United States, 1790 to 1880. And he said that there were almost 700,000 slaves in 1790, which equated to approximately 18% of the total population, or roughly 1 in every 6 people. And then he said that by 1860, the final census taken before the American Civil War, there were 4 million slaves in the South, compared with less than 500,000 free African Americans in all of the U.S. And he said that of the 4.4 million African Americans in the U.S. before the war, almost 4 million of these people were held as slaves, meaning that for all African Americans living in the U.S. in 1860, there was an 89% chance that they lived in slavery. Okay? So let's just deal with that first number. 700,000 slaves in the U.S. in 1790, which equated to approximately 18% of the total population. That's what he said, right? So now, those of us who are thinking critically, now I know you're going to follow me, all right? When we go to the table, I want you to do this with me now. When you go to the table and you look at the numbers from, again, that first slave ship, which came in 1655, and you tabulate it all the way down to 1790. I actually have the spreadsheet up on my Excel, so I'm trying to give you as accurate numbers as possible. So from 1655 to 1790, and mind you, all those people weren't alive from 1655. The life expectancy, the birth rate, mortality rate, all of these things, you have to put these things in part, but I'm going to give you the sum. By the year 1790, according to their records, it was only 287,468. Let's just round it off to 288,000. According to them, again, I'm not making this up, it's them. According to them, by 1790, 288,000 slaves or Africans were kidnapped and brought on slave ships here. 288,000. Now, I'm asking any of you here who are following me, what kind of math are they doing that 288,000, again, this is an accumulative number. This is an aggregate number, meaning that this is a sum total from all the years combined, that they come up with 700,000 slaves in the year 1790. I'm going to give you a little bit more context to that, okay? The U.S. Census I'm going to talk to y'all for a minute. The first U.S. Census was conducted in 1790. And as the gentleman was explaining with the slaves that they say they counted according to these censuses, I want to talk to you for a minute, family. According to them, yes, it was 694,280 slaves in total. Okay? There were some in the Southwest Territory totaling 3,417. So yes, absolutely. There were approximately almost 1 million black people here. My question to you, to anybody who does do math, what would the birth rate need to be and the mortality rate need to be in order to ensure that out of that sum total of 288,000, that within a period of, say, 200 years, what would the birth rate, mortality rate need to be in order for that number to truly exist? Now, I'm just going to let you know right now, some of the highest birth rates right now, or of course, that are in Africa right now, is 47 births per 1,000. Okay? That is one of the highest birth rates ever. 47 births per 1,000. You can look that up. My question to you is, what kind of math were they doing if from this small number, 288,000, and again, let me just make it even clearer for you. Let's just say those people in 1790, let's just give them a life expectancy of 90 years. Which we know that's not true. A lot of those slaves didn't make it past 50. But if you give those slaves, say, a life expectancy of 90 years, let's go to 1700. I want to talk to the people that think critically. Please. To those of you who think critically, my question is, 90-year life expectancy 275,000 people. Please tell me, how do you reach a number of 700,000 people? That is more than double in 90 years. And considering they were in chattel slavery, not like we are today, having the best health care, the best doctors. You got all kind of treatment for this. You got all kind of healthy food. These people were working sun up to sun fucking down, man. In the hot sun, picking cotton, tobacco, you name it. Okay? And let me just give you a little bit more context. When you look at the percentage of those slaves that were brought over here, 66% of them were men. 20% of them were children. Which means that the other 20% were women, the only people who could bear children. They weren't doing all this funny stuff they're doing today. Talk about men can have babies. So my question to you, to the logical, critical thinker that you are, and giving them all the advantage, 90-year life expectancy, yeah, give it to them. Who fucking cares? My question to you is, how in the world could it jump in 90 years from 278,000 to almost 1,700,000? More than double, almost triple. Considering everything they put us through. Now, I mean, I'm gonna even go into the fact that, because I didn't stop there. I'm just gonna be honest with you, because I wanted to really understand this thing. I didn't want to look at the numbers and just say, I really wanted to understand this thing. So even in going deeper than that, right? I was looking at the birth rates. There is one second, y'all. See, there is let me pull it up. I thought I had it open, but I don't. There is a report. It's called a Statistical Reconstruction of the Black Population of the United States. Okay? It's called a Statistical Reconstruction of the Black Population of the United States. And in this, they estimated the true numbers of age, sex, birth rates, and total fertility. See, when you study this, you actually have to go deep into it. You can't take what's on the surface and run with it. Because the birth rate, the fertility rate, even the mortality rate, it plays a role in what we're talking about, family. Okay? I want you to hear me out now. Because it's easy for me to say, because that's what, when you're talking about this, people are going to deny the existence of what we're talking about, but they're not going to back it up with facts. And so it's kind of like the burden of proof is on us to prove what we're saying to be true. So if by their own numbers, meaning I gave you the table and it shows you clearly the number of Africans that were brought over here from Africa who were kidnapped and made slaves over here, it clearly showed you the number. Now, when you look at the census, when you look at even how they explain the number of slaves that were here, those numbers don't add up. And the thing is, they never gave an explanation of how they reached that. Do you understand what I'm saying? They never gave an explanation of how they got from 200-something thousand to that number they were talking about, 4 million, whatever the number was. They never talked about how they got there. They never said there's this many babies, and we know they were mixing. Trust me, I know all about the breeding. Trust me, I know about that. But the even darker part about the breeding, family, and I hate to say this, is a lot of those children didn't make it. It's not like they were breeding and a woman had 8 babies and all 8 survived. No, that didn't happen. It's not like the woman who was breeding, who when she was raped by her slave master, it's not like that child was made a slave because it was a slave master's babies. No, that baby wasn't on the field. I hope you follow me. I'm giving you context because this is what we don't do a lot of times. We don't do a lot of thinking when it comes to this stuff. We read it, and emotionally, this is our fucking problem. I have to tell you the truth. We read it, and emotionally, we're so attached to the wrong that happened, and it's wrong, it is vile, it is absolutely disgusting. But we get thrown off by the emotional attachment to what happened, and we never dig into the story and ask questions. We just take it, and we don't want to fucking talk about it. That is the problem. And that is why we can't get to the truth, and we stuck. Man, I hate this shit, man. I'm going to be honest with you. We are stuck arguing with people from Africa about fucking slavery. We're not waking up and smelling the fucking coffee that these people that did this, not only did they do this, but they lied about how they did it. And your question may be, well, what was the advantage in that? Well, family, let me just tell you this. You know what our problem is? Our problem is we always talk about how they planned for 100 years. They planned for 1,000 years. But we can never discuss our plan. You ask somebody right now. You say, hey, you got a 5-year plan? They don't have one. It's going to take them an hour, 2 days to even get back what you say. My 5-year plan is this. We don't know anything about planning, family. I'm not talking about individually. I'm talking about as a whole. When we say that, hey, you know, they've been planning this for, right? Where's our they? That's my question. So when you ask this question, what would be the benefit? Well, let's go back. Look at the quote unquote Declaration of Independence, right? You are now sitting 300 years in of that Declaration of Independence, me and you right now enjoying the life, liberty, and all of this shit. We're enjoying that. We're enjoying the fruits of whatever was written. And so you have to understand that these people foreseen. If they could foresee down 300 years, these people foreseen a reason for that lie. Because they knew that there would come a time that, as you see, you know, when you open a can of fucking worms, they knew there would come a time they open a can of worms. And as the truth starts seeping out, see, they depended on one thing, which was destroying your history. You think when Columbus and all those folks, when they went around the world with under the direction of the papal bulls, do you think that when they went and destroyed every single book that the Mayans had, they didn't do that for a reason? When they destroyed those books, they destroyed knowledge, history, everything, so much so that today we still trying to figure out how the hell they did the shit they did. This is what they do. However you record your history, they destroy it. It doesn't make sense. I'm going to talk to you about something. Today, very few of us, not saying we can't do it, I'm saying very few of us have actually connected ourselves to our tribal ancestors in Africa. Very few. All these millions of quote unquote slaves, yet very few of us can actually connect to a particular tribe and say, hey, this is my family. And you know what else? The same holds true for those who are indigenous right here. Even though we know that there is a history there. Because we have a few people from the indigenous side, we have some few people from the indigenous from Africa side that can't actually make that connection. So we know there's a connection, but why so many of us can't make our own personal connection? It is because they destroyed that connection. And how do you know that? Well, the proof is in the pudding. Look at our counterparts. A lot of our counterparts, they are tracing their lineage back to 1700s, 1600s, and, they're doing it with ease. Yet for those of us who say we were here first, I'm not even talking about United States. I'm talking about on the planet. We have a much longer, richer history than our counterparts. And we are still trying to figure it out. I hope y'all understand where I'm going with this. That the truth that we claim that to have, we don't have it all. When they say history, yes, they damn sure do mean his story. That is a fact. Because, again, you know this from anthropologists, historians, everybody, that we were here first. They say we originated, humanity originated in Africa, and you know that that was a melanated person. We were here first. So my thing is this, family. If we were here first, how can a fucking baby tell you your goddamn history? A baby that just fucking got here. If you millions of years old, or your ancestors, or what the origin of you is millions of years old, please tell me how we are having babies who just got here tell us our history. That is a smack in the face if I ever saw one. Because, see, that's like you going to your child and saying, hey, where do I come from? Your child should be looking at you like you crazy. Why? Because you birthed them. And you should be the one giving them the history. But that's not what we see today. Any book we open up, why the fuck is one of them who published it, wrote it, did the research? Are you not hearing me? Oh, it's the same thing in Africa. I didn't believe it. No, I didn't believe it. I'm going to sit here and tell you fucking right now. I said, there ain't no way. I said, there ain't no fucking way. But when I did the research, that bitch just died. You ever heard of colonialism? Yeah, they did a number. They did a fucking number on us. Okay? They did a number on us where basically every piece of our education was influenced by them. And we're carrying on as if this is normal. We're carrying on as if this is normal. We are getting our history from someone who is younger than us by bloodline. And we think it's normal. I hate that I have to reference where we come from the same people whose their ancestors is the one that enslaved ours. I hate that we have such a minimal point of reference, and no disrespect to Dr. Ben and all those African scientists and historians and anthropologists that actually put work in. I read their books. I read their books at a young age because I was thirsty when I was young, because I was trying to figure out how the hell did all of this shit happen. But this devil that we're dealing with he was wise as a serpent. Yes, he was. He was wise as a serpent, and in manipulating. You see, using that census, they did something what they call paper genocide. I want to talk to you for a minute. Now, according to them, you don't find the Native Americans in the census until I think 1860. They were counting them, and this is a lot of research. I'm telling you, all this I'm giving you, you're benefiting from years of research. Right now, in this little discussion lecture that we're having right now, you're benefiting from years of research. This ain't something I just went to fucking Google. You understand me? I know people say Google's free. Yeah, Google's free. But nigga, if you don't know what to look for, Google ain't free. Google is worthless, as a matter of fact, if you don't know what to look for. So what I'm trying to explain to you is that in the 1600s, when they were actually keeping track of some of this shit, it wasn't necessarily a census, but there were people who were writing records. Okay? So when those Spaniards and all those motherfuckers, those Portuguese was all over the world doing what they're going everywhere, trying to enslave everybody, they were keeping some records. And there came a point where they stopped keeping records on the indigenous people. And they created what you call race. There's a lady, I forget her name. She's a white lady, and she tells you there is no such thing as white people. I don't remember her name. You can look it up. White lady says there are no such thing as white people. Look her up. They created race as a social construct. So when you hear people say, well, there were more than just black slaves, they're not lying to you. There were white slaves, there were Indian slaves, there were black slaves, African slaves, slaves from every fucking where. This is true. But what they found to be even truer was that African slaves were the strongest. Hold on, what did I share up there? Did I share the right thing? Hold on, y'all. I don't know what I put up there. Hold on. Oh man, hold on, man. Let me take a little short break for a minute. I need to get back. All right, so I want you to understand something. They stopped counting the indigenous population sometime in the mid 1600s, and didn't pick it back up until 1860, something like that. Why? Why? You want to know something? If you are a true researcher, you'll understand why. Because if you ever heard of the $5 Indians, the Dawes Roll, right? The federal government was taking land and giving out land and all some crazy nonsense they had going on, where if you had $5, you could be a fucking Indian. So at that point now they start counting natives. And next thing you know, shit got crazy. So when you look at the census, all they had was black, white, and mulatto. 1790 first census, black, white, mulatto. That's it. And even in the census that they're counting, when you look at the slaves that are being brought over here, and then also too, they were doing the 3/5 of a man shit. Don't think they left that out. Nah, that was included. Okay? So even then, the numbers that they're giving you, and I'm gonna talk to you about it. The numbers that they're giving you, right, were even still underrepresented. They were underestimated. So here we go. So in 1787, all right, let me talk to you about this thing here. This is called The History and the Growth of the United States Census. This is a report you can actually download. It's the Wright Hunt report. You can download this from the United States National Archives or Census Bureau, one of those things. It's from a government website. And it gives you the estimates of the population. What's so crazy is, as I'm looking at these years, I'm just going to run off some stuff to y'all. 1750, 1 million white people, 220,000 black people. 1754, 1.1 million white people, 260,000 black people. 1760, 1.3 million white people, 300,000 black people. 1770, 1.8 million, 462,000 black people. 1780, 2.3 million, 500,000 black people, right? 1787, I want you to hear me. They said there were 2.5 million white people, but you had to add 208,000 Negroes that were omitted for a total population of 2.7 million. And of course, this was 3/5, the number I'm giving you. Now, it's just a bunch of numbers that are, number one, we don't even know how they're putting this shit together. I'm just going to keep it 100 with you. You don't know how they're putting the numbers together. And of course, with them not really counting black people the way they said, and again, they didn't have computers. They had people who were lazy. There was probably people who owned land that they didn't even know they were even there. This shit wasn't organized back then like you see it is today. And so I'm looking at numbers from Maryland, 80,000 Negroes, Virginia, 280,000 Negroes, North Carolina, 60,000 Negroes, South Carolina, 80,000 Negroes. And all of this is saying including 3/5 of. All right? So they were doing all of that. And you just got to put in your, I want you to use logic and put your mind in the context of that time period. How many of us there were here, which didn't come from those slave ships, man? I have a book. It's called The Black Indian Slave Narratives. Now, this book here was compiled out of the slave narratives that you'll find at the National Archive. If you ever read the slave narratives from the National Archive, you'll see that there are thousands and thousands of slave narratives. This book takes a percentage of those slave narratives and talks about where they mention in Native Americans, Indians, or Indigenous, however you want to call it, people who were talking about where they came from. Let me just read something out of here for you really quick. I want you to hear this. And these are slaves, as they call themselves, talking about this stuff. I actually have this on Kindle. I actually have a physical copy and the book on Kindle. That's how much I like the book, because of the truth that's in it that a lot of people don't talk about. Okay? And this is the thing, family. When we fight each other about our origin, we actually make the enemy look so much smarter than us. He's actually sitting back, knowing the truth, and seeing us squabble over what happened to us. Here's the introduction. Okay, I'm going to try to read it the best I can, but she's talking in that old Negro language. Okay? So y'all bear with me. She says, I think it's a she. I think so. The nigger stealers done stole me and my mammy out the Choctaw Nation up in the Indian Territory. When I was about 3 years old, Brother Nex, Sis Hannah, and my mammy and her two stepchildren was down on the river washing. The nigger stealers drive up in a big carriage, and Mammy just thought nothing because the ford was near there. And people going on the road stopped to water the horses and rest a while in the shade. By and by, a man coaxes the two biggest children to the carriage and give them some kind of candy. Other children see this and goes too. Two other men was walking around smoking and getting closer to Mammy all the time. When he can, the man in the carriage get the two big stepchildren in with him, and me and sis climb in too to see how come. Then the man holler, "Get the old one and let's get from here." With that, the two big men grabbed Mammy, and she fought and screeched and bit and cried, but they hit her on the head with something and drug her in and threw her on the floor. The big chillins begin to fight for Mammy, but one of the men hit him hard, and off they drive with their horses under whip. That was Spence Johnson. That was actually a guy. And it says on that day, the lives of Spence Johnson, everyone around him, took a sudden and dramatic turn. One minute, he and his family were by the river washing clothes. The next day had been seized by nigger stealers and sold down the river to Louisiana, where once they were among the finest families of the Choctaw Nation, they now found themselves on the auction block being sold to the highest bidder as commodities on the slave market. Speaking only their native tongue, they were suddenly cast adrift in a world of words and symbols they little understood, facing a plight unprecedented in their experience. As they came to find out, the line between blacks and Indians in 19th century was hardly as wide as many had thought. It seems that slaves came in many colors and that the peculiar institution was no respecter of persons. All right? Equally, the narrative of Spence Johnson can help us reshape our worldview and bring us to look at the institution of slavery in a different light. We have notions of what a slave was and what slavery was like. Our recorded histories have detailed the capture of indigenous persons from the west of Africa, their horrific middle passage to America, and their eventual lives under the brutal institution of chattel slavery. The very notion of the slave narratives conjures up images of aged blacks only a short time removed from their plantation life, depicting, sometimes quite fondly, the institution that so shaped their lives and the lives of their ancestors. Is an image of stark contrast of black and white. Now, I'm going to stop right there for 1 minute before I keep going. What this person is basically saying is that the only thing that mattered was that they weren't white. That is it. It didn't matter if they were from Africa. It didn't matter if they were Indian. It didn't matter. None of that stuff mattered. The only thing that mattered to those quote-unquote nigger stealers was that they weren't white. And so I want people to understand that while a lot of people like to argue about, oh, all black people came from Africa or this and that, you see, that is being naive. To think that the only melanated people in the world that were targeted were blacks in Africa. That is not true. Like, we have to have an open mind to think for yourself, family. Yes, please. Think. If we were the ones that basically gave birth to these folks, they say we're the original people. We're the indigenous people of this world. Not just of Africa, from Africa, not just America, of this world. We're the indigenous people of this world. Anthropologists tell you everybody came from us, the melanated. So you have to ask yourself, what, were we centralized in one place, or did we go all over the place? I'm going to give you a little story. You know, many of you know that I have Haitian ancestry, which is tied to Taino. The largest Taino museum is actually in Haiti. Has the most Taino artifacts and everything. And in my research of that, come to find out that Africans actually were in Haiti before the African slave ships got there. And we know a lot of African stations went to Haiti all through the Caribbean. Haiti was known as the Pearl of the Antilles because they were producing sugar, all kind of stuff for the French. They were a very, very rich country for the French. Do you not know that on Christopher Columbus's way to the Caribbean islands, he actually passed some Africans and they told him where Haiti was? And when he got to Haiti, there were already 3 different African tribes in Haiti. Now, when I read that, that kind of blew my mind because I'm like, what? And that actually opened the door to me understanding that, you know, we give these folks too much credit, man. They have us thinking that they were the explorers of the world, that they were the conquerors of the world, that they were the ones that discovered everything. You know, they say Christopher Columbus discovered America. How the hell did you discover America? People already here. That doesn't make sense. But this is how we were taught. So I think the common ground that we, as either Indigenous Americans or Africans, the common ground is that we have an enemy who has lied to us both. We have an enemy that has actually committed atrocities to us both. Okay? And the position we find a lot of times when we find ourselves in is like we're playing who's the bigger victim, or who's a smarter victim, or whatever. I don't know. It's just a crazy game that we're playing with ourselves. Just in all honesty, it is a crazy game. And so we gotta get out of that game and start realizing that, okay, look, the joke's been on us. All right? And I'm gonna tell y'all, it's a lot of, man, look, it's some shit that I research and look at what they say. And I'm like, some of this stuff I don't even want to talk about. Because we're so warped in our mind that if I put that information out there, people start taking the information the wrong way and try to find a way to up one. And that's not what this is about. This ain't about up one in each other. This is about understanding that we are all on the same level playing field, regardless of your origin. We're on the same level playing field. And that both of us have been lied to. Both of us are giving us our history. They're giving us our history, and we were here before them. That is backwards. That is backwards as hell. So, you know, I want to finish reading this little part right here. It says, however, as the narratives in this collection attest, we might need to rethink that vision. These narratives present a complex view of not only the institution, but also of the persons who practiced chattel slavery and those who were victims of this tragic period in our history. It is indeed a controversial subject among American Indians and persons of African descent. The participation of Native Americans in the institution of slavery is troublesome enough, but ties of blood and community to African Americans pose a knotty issue with the respect to citizenship in various American Indian nations. Equally so, opening up the canons of history to include the subjugation of Native Americans within the institution of slavery proves similarly problematic for Africanists. It seems that scholars have chosen to ignore the fact that a significant body of those enslaved were indigenous persons of the Americas, and that sometimes those who were engaged in the practice of slavery were also Native Americans. So, just the same way, and I hear these arguments. The same way they say, "Oh, Africans, you Africans," you know, I be hearing that dumb shit. It's stupid. You Africans sold yourself into slavery. Right? Well, hello, Mr. Indigenous American. Fucking Native Americans did the same fucking thing. You read this book, Black Indian Slave Narratives, they will tell you that a lot of their masters were fucking Indian too. All right? And they were selling them to the white man, and even the ones that were selling the white man, they were being taken into fucking slavery. The same way they did those Africans when they got done selling them. You better pay attention. They did the same thing to both. So ain't no big eyes, little U's in this shit. We all lost. Let's be for real. We all lost in this shit. And as long as we keep fighting each other, say, we ain't gonna get no fucking where. Okay, you African. Okay, you indigenous. Soda, now what? What's the next fucking move? Have we figured that part out yet, or are we still gonna argue? We act like it's a big thing just if we from America or if we from fucking Africa. It don't fucking matter. You still, but all of us got bit by the same goddamn dog. Now what? It's a goddamn shame. So, even in just looking at these censuses, which I've looked at every single one, I implore you to do the same thing. Start with the 1790 census, which is their first one, they say. But there are actually other books that you can look at where people were already trying to keep count because they were trying to border this thing. All right? They were trying to control it, and they doing a hell of it. All these borders you see now is, guess what? It came from fucking slavery. All of these borders that you see now came from slavery, man. You got fucking Florida and Louisiana, Texas. All that shit came from slavery. What you think they made them borders for? You talk about keep the immigrants out. Nigga, they made that shit from slavery, man. Alright? When you start looking at the taxes and all that shit, where you think that 3/5 shit comes from? Where you think it comes from? It's the South. Go do your research. The South wanted more fucking money. So they say, hey, we gotta start counting these niggas. These nigga slaves we got. We need more money for them. That's where that 3/5 shit came from. So they were in South Carolina, they were in Georgia, they were in all these southern states. Wake up, pay attention. You see? We got history right in front of us. We don't even understand this shit. We talking about I'm from Georgia. You big dummy. You talking about you from Georgia. Georgia didn't even exist when your people was here. When the colonizers came and they said, motherfucking, all right, we got white, black, and you know what I mean, blah, blah, blah. That's when they made the states too. So after they made the race, they made the states and all this shit. All this shit you see today is what they call social constructs. That's what these things are. Now we getting into the really real. See? When you start talking social constructs, people want to leave the conversation. Because they're brainwashed. They don't want to deal with the social construct aspect of this thing. See, because to deal with the social construct means to deal with the fact that race was made up by the enemy. And you know how we are. We so fucking broken, we only want to see each other as the enemy. It's sad, man. But I have to be honest with you. There is a lining in this thing. You see, the good part is that there are people who are fed up. There are people who are fed up with everything that's happening right now. And even with what they did a couple of years ago with COVID and all this stuff. See, racism, I'm going to be honest with y'all, racism is embedded in everything. It is. And the thing is, I don't even like to talk about racism because people like to use racism as a crutch. I call it the victim hierarchy. Okay? See, you can use racism for any situation. And because it's so weaved into our everyday lives the way that it is, you can choose to use it whenever you want to. All right? So I see it often. People who position themselves, right? They'll one say, hey, oh, I don't see, and I'm talking about black people, I ain't even talking about white people. I don't see race. Right? And that's because they trying to get close to the enemy. See, they don't let them fool you. They know what the fuck's going on. They're playing a game. Mm-hmm. Whether it's they're in law enforcement, whether they're a judge, whether they're, somebody that works for the establishment and they're close to that source of power. So they're going to I don't see race until they get pulled over by that racist cop. Now they want to pull the race card. That's a problem to me. That is a problem. And then you have those who, that's all they want to do. White people, white blah, 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 blah. Now they just want to use race as a reason to not do nothing. The man got us fucked up, man. So you got to look at this with just by this thing is analytical. You can't just look at this shit and just think you got it. No. Are you crazy? We was in this shit 400 years, some people longer than that. 400 years of psychological damage, and you think you got it figured out in your little 40 years on this planet? Are you crazy? You've been here 40 years. You think you overcame 400 years of psychological damage. Slavery, nigga. Are you crazy? Chattel slavery. People out picking cotton, man. People killing babies. I know they don't want. Look, there's a book called Without Sanctuary. It's a lynching book. It's a picture book. It costs about $80. You want a taste of reality? Yeah, try to flip through that page, all those pages in that book, where they were making postcards of niggas being lynched and sending it off. Merry Christmas, Happy Thanksgiving, miss you. Yeah. See, that's why I hear people thinking that you ain't overcome shit, nigga. You ain't overcome nothing. That shit just happened, man. That shit was fucking 60 years ago. 70 years ago. You think that's a long time? You think that's a long fucking answer me? 100 years ago. That was just Jim Crow, lynching, all that shit. That boy that got killed. That lady was still alive, man. That boy, you know what I'm talking about. From Chicago, Illinois, Chicago, whatever. She lied and said he whistled at her and shit. What's his name, Richard? Richard Love. What's his name, Richard? That boy, that lady. Somebody put in the chat or something. What's Emmett Till? Yes, thank you, Tia.
Emmett Till.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That lady's still here. People acting like we don't got nigga. Are you crazy? And when I say nigga, you know what I mean. I'm just trying to put some shock value on what I'm saying. People actually think that was a long time ago. And you think that, so listen, let's just consciously, please, I'm talking to the critical thinkers in here. If black people haven't overcome the psychological damage of slavery and Jim Crow in 400 years, what make you think white people have? Because they were the beneficiaries. You think they feel your pain? Why you think they telling you pull yourself up by your bootstraps? They ain't been through the shit you been through in your head, man. I just told you, go look at that book Without Sanctuary. You think I'm bullshit. Google it right now, hit images. Without Sanctuary, see if I'm fucking lying. That's what this world was like, man. United States, fuck the world. United States, man. You driving down dark country roads right now where it was dangerous to do that because you might not make it back home. There was a time not too long ago you couldn't be out after dark. In fact, there's still towns like that. They call them sundown towns. Nigga, you out here after the sundown. You out there after sundown, nigga, you gonna die. Straight up. See? You take that shit for a joke. And come on these apps and argue about, oh, we not from Africa, we from... Shut up. We all been bit by the same fucking dog, and I'm trying to prove that shit to you, man. This shit's sad. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't even need to prove this shit to you. The facts is there. All you gotta do is open your eyes, read a fucking book, which we don't like to do. We don't like to do research. We don't like, because there's too much time. And that's what they know. That's why they got you working 40 hours a week, 80 hours a week. Why? So that you can be too preoccupied to find out where you really come from. Because when you realize where you really come from, you see that we all been bit by the same dog. Guess what? Your anger inside of you is going to build 400 years of anger, even longer than that, man. That's what they afraid of. That's what they afraid of. That's why they block and censor a motherfucking nigga. They don't want niggas waking up. They don't mind you going on motherfucking TikTok doing all them fucking rabbit bunny hop dances, all this stupid ass shit. They want a goddamn Sambo. And you call, I'm living my best life. Oh, you call this a best fucking life? This what you call a best life? I hate to see you when you fucking 70 years old. The fuck? You calling this shit a best fucking life? You busting your ass. You worried about this bill, that bill. You worried about if they're going to put you out. You worried about they're going to take your car. You worried about all kind of motherfucking shit. You worried about getting sick and not going to the doctor because you want to take a fucking vaccine. You calling this shit a best fucking life. What fucking world you living in? They got us fucked up. That's why they give you those fucking whack-ass entertainers telling you, I'm living my best life. The fuck out of here. They don't want you dealing with real shit, man. They don't want to bring that beast up out of you. That lion. That's why they say, there's a lion asleep in Judah. Who will awake him? You sleep. You think you woke. You ain't woke yet. Trust me, if you was woke, shit, you wouldn't be on fucking Clubhouse listening to me. You be out there raising some fucking hell. You know? That's why I don't. There's a point in time I have to really measure myself. You know? I have to measure myself. With all this shit that I know, I have to measure myself. I have to measure my words. I have to measure the things that I do. Because yes, it is true. You can get burnt out and you can go off the deep end. That's the facts of this shit, man. Yeah. All this no vaccine shit, all this fucking, all this shit is being flooded, all this shit, fire, all kind of shit happening all around the world. People just killing people for no fucking reason, for jury, man. And with all this knowledge that you know, you better be measured. Or you might end up like those people out there. That lady driving 100 miles per hour, just ramming into shit. Little boy leaving his mama's house, just shooting people and streaming this shit live on fucking Facebook. Yeah. Niggas gone crazy. White people too. They can't take this shit. You know? They can't take this shit. This shit too real. So that's why, again, when you talking about what we talking about, right? It's gonna be a lot of people like, oh man, that ain't true. They ain't done no research. They ain't done none. They went to school. They taught them about transatlantic slave trade. And then from there, they embedded them with roots. 12 years a slave. Gave them, what's that lady name? Harriet Tubman. Right? That's their history. That's their history. That's what they take and they run with it. Right? Then they put it, they embellished it a little bit. They'd be like, what they say, the Egyptians built the pyramids. That's all you got? Is that all you got? You got Egyptians built the pyramids. That's all they give you. You say, yeah, man, we were kings and queens, man. Is that all you got? What else you got besides? You've been hinging on that for how long, and you still ain't figured that. Now watch this shit. Okay, you come from Egyptians, kings and queens, all that. You built the pyramid. How you built the pyramids? Do you even know? Can you do it again? And why it's not your people doing it? If you come from that bloodline. Do y'all not see what I'm talking about? This is what I'm trying to explain to y'all. They manipulated your history, then they gave it to you and got you chasing your tail like a dog. Because you still don't know shit about yourself. Nothing. They designed it that way, baby. They designed it that way. You feel me? They designed it that way for a reason. So that once you took what they gave you, guess what's going to happen? When you need some more, guess who you're going back to? Them. Who taught you they built the pyramids? Was it your folks? Or was it them? Keep that shit 100.
Right people told me.
You see? So if it was them, right? That means that once you found that out, next time you're going to get some more information, you're going right back to them. You see the problem there? You see the problem there? That's why I'm saying, man, we will never grow like that. It don't even matter. That's why it's so important that you know your origin yourself. See? And that's what they're trying to keep away from you. They're trying to keep the facts away from you, because once you start getting this shit yourself, guess what? You're going to stop going to them. So just like I showed you that there's inconsistencies. You look at the insurance documents, the slave ships that was insured, how many people was on the slave ships. You look at the Census Bureau, how many people the census says was here already. And then you look at how many people they say was enslaved. The math ain't mathing, right? So at that point, you're supposed to say to yourself, well, guess what? You know what? It's time to throw the baby out with the bathwater, baby. Nothing they say is true. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And, sometimes, I'm going to touch on this very briefly. I ain't going to talk a lot about it. But, sometimes, even when we bring up the Bible, the historical aspects of the Bible, right? Of who wrote it, where it came from. See, a lot of people, they fight with that, man. They fight with it. You know why? There's an emotional attachment there. Okay? There's an emotional attachment there. Why? Because this is what made us get through. Through slavery. Understand? Who gave them the Bible? The slave master. They say here. Even though you weren't Christian, you know nothing about Christianity, you didn't speak English, I just read it out the book. If you were native, you spoke whatever your native language, you didn't speak English. If you came from Africa, you didn't speak English, you spoke whatever your tribal tongue was there. And then you come here and then they gave you a Bible. And that was the only thing you could relate to on Sunday, okay? Because you weren't in the field. You weren't in that hot ass sun, okay? You weren't in the hot ass sun, beating down, sun up, sun down. You was in the church. Glad you wasn't out in the motherfucking field, okay? And so we resonated with that. We got rest. Finally. See? That's what I mean by context. Historical context. You need it. Because the story they gave you, he saved us, he saved us. But you don't even think about how you got it. You don't even think about how your family who handed it down to you made it part of the family tradition, man. And it's still family tradition today. And you talk to those people. Hey, where you got that religion? My mama. Where you got that? My mama. Where you got that? My mama. Everything was handed down. But nobody stopped to ask the question, hey, wait a minute. Where did we originally get this shit from? Right? Think about it, please. That's all I'm saying. Is that we use our brain to think critically and logically. We haven't, look, let's stop the emotions, first and foremost, and just deal with the facts. Now, if anybody has facts on how they went from 200,000 to 700,000, how they did that, that's some facts that we need to look into. Because to me, outside of saying that they got this shit got the people from the land that was already here, and I'm going to read something on that. I read it a long time ago, maybe about a year ago, in one of our rooms like this, and I'm going to read it again today. Right? I want y'all to listen to this. Okay? Listen. Let me do a quick reset before I go into it, all right? I'm going to welcome everybody to the Executive Office of Dr. Blackbeat Inc. Okay? Make sure you hit that link tree. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, every link I got, you follow that shit. They trying to censor me on so many platforms, and I don't even know what account I'm on any of them, but you follow all of them. I post on all of them. Now, today we are talking about slave trade lies in plain sight, Indigenous Americans and Black Indians. Now, when I opened the room, I basically stated that this room is not about saying this transatlantic slave trade did not exist. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about in this room is the origin of the indigenous people that are here in America. There are a large percentage of Black Americans who are indigenous to this land. And all I was doing today is just pointing out inconsistencies, for one, according to their records, and as well as what I'm going into now, statements that were made that actually prove that there are Blacks who are indigenous to America. I mentioned the book. It's called Black Indian Slave Narratives. Every slave narrative in here can be found on the National Archives of the major slave narratives, which tells you that there were a lot of Black people who did not come from those ships, but were actually already here on this land, and some of them were being enslaved by other indigenous Americans or Indians, however you want to call them. So this fact, and they'll tell you that, is often ignored. As I read a passage out the book, it's often ignored. And what I'm here to tell people is that we can't ignore that. So while we give honors and respects to our fallen ancestors that came from Africa, there are also fallen ancestors that were indigenous to the land here. You see? And they don't want us to know that, and I'm going to get ready to go into that in a little bit. Because it's about resources. You see? We're coming into a time where the veil is being lifted, and people, the indigenous people, your day is coming. Your day is coming. Everybody, reparations, all that's going to come. Don't worry about that. All that's going to come. It's going to come the right way, though. I want to talk to y'all. And so, the most beloved president of our time, as it pertains to quote unquote slavery, is Abraham Lincoln. And when you look at the collected works of Abraham Lincoln, you can find this just about anywhere. This one I'm going to read to you is off of the University of Michigan website. It's called The Collected Works of Abraham Lincoln. And it is actually an address made in August of 1862, August 14, 1862 to be exact. And this particular address, it is the second of its kind that he is making to black people. So he had a small audience, pardon me, of black men, approximately 5 of them, if I'm not mistaken. Few of them were Masons. And this address is called the Address on Colonization to a Deputation of Negroes. That's the name of this address. August 14, 1862. Now, when I say that this is the second address of its kind, it is because he had a plan the first time. And the plan the first time was to ship blacks here in America to Liberia, which was African state or country, whatever, where they already had a small population of black Americans that had went there to try, and there actually are some that are still there from that first exit, but not a lot of people went. And so Lincoln had a lot of trouble on his hands. He was trying to get this slavery thing under control. This is right before he signed the Emancipation Proclamation. So he's trying to get the slavery thing under control. It's getting crazy. The South is acting one way, North acting one way. And so his address or his answer was basically, man, can I get these niggas out of America? He wanted them out. He said that if they got, because he believed that if they got blacks out of the country, then there wouldn't be no slavery, and so he wouldn't have no problem with it from the South or the North. So that was his answer. So being that the first time it wasn't as successful going to Liberia, he came back, and this is what they call the Panama Plan. So in the Panama, it's called that today, but yesterday it was called something else. Yesteryear, it was actually called something else at that time because it wasn't Panama. But today it's called the Panama Plan. But this plan he had was basically to take a number of blacks. I don't know, the number varies. I don't know if it was 5,000 families. I don't know how many it was. But he wanted to take a certain number of blacks out of the United States and send them to the colony in Panama. Okay? And he wanted them all to go there and say they could get their freedom there and everything. So it's a kind of a 2-page address, maybe 2-3 pages, I'm not sure. But there's something in the letter that he mentions at least twice that identifies the people that he's talking to. So, let me read to you what he said. And again, this is called out of the collected works of Abraham Lincoln. This is called the Address on Colonization to a Deputation of Negroes, August 14th, 1862. All right. So now he said to them, and again, he mentioned to them, oh, this is closer than Liberia. Don't worry about this, right? So he talks about how, you know, whites have differences with blacks, blah, 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 I guess, and all of that, right? But here's the thing as he's talking. He says, the question is, if the colored people are persuaded to go anywhere, why not there? One reason for an unwillingness to do so is that some of you would rather remain within reach of the country of your nativity. Now, I'm going to stop there. Actually, let me read the next part. He says, I do not know how much attachment you may have toward our race. It does not strike me that you have the greatest reason to love them, but still, you are attached to them at all events. Okay? So, the key thing in that particular, what he was explaining, he said, the question is if the colored people are persuaded to go anywhere, why not there? He's talking about Central America. He said, one reason for an unwillingness to do so is that some of you would rather remain within reach of the country of your nativity. Now, if you don't know what that means, that just means the country where you were born, where you are originally from. Right? But let's just say he's talking to some people who are recently there and they just born there. Okay, cool. Let's continue though, which gives a little bit more clarity to me. He says, and this is where it really kind of let me know that he knew who these people were. Here it is. Here. So he says, the place I'm thinking about having for a colony is in Central America. It is nearer to us than Liberia, not much more than 1/4 as far as Liberia, and within 7 days' run by steamers. Unlike Liberia, it is on a great line of travel. It is a highway. The country is a very excellent one for any people, and with great natural resources and advantages, and especially because of the similarity of climate with your native land, America, thus being suited to your physical condition. So in 2 different instances, as he's talking to these 5 black men, he makes reference to the fact that they are natives to America. Now, understand something. He was going to send them to Liberia, but it was too far, right? They didn't want to go there, whatever. Few of them did go, but the point is that, you see, it would have made sense if he would have said Liberia was a climate like their native land, if he knew that they were from Africa. But no. He's talking about Central America and the Americas being in close proximity, and that the climate itself is kind of similar. So that their native land he's talking about is America. The reason why they don't want to leave is because they don't want to get too far from America, which is where they're from. So even in that, and there's a lot more to it when you actually go into a lot of the historical speeches of that time, you'll see a lot of these references. There are 2 different things going on around that time that a lot of people need to be aware of. One, the AME, African Methodist Zionist, whatever, well, I forget the name of it, but anyway, there was actually a Christian movement of African churches going on at that time, that these men, one of these men, or maybe 2 of those men, were part of that society. They were Masons, but they were also part of that society and were responsible for spreading Christianity. I want y'all to understand something. There was an agenda at play here, which was to, 1, get the African or even indigenous people to, 1, buy into Christianity, and at the same time buy into leaving the country. These were the 2 agendas at play. When you do the research, you will see it. When you look at the origins of the AME and see who they're tied to, you'll start to see that the white gentlemen who were tied to that whole AME movement, they were Masons. And their whole idea, which was not too far from removed from the establishment of this country, we always got to keep all of that stuff in context. Masons established this country. They always had an agenda. And that agenda has never gone far. Now, today, we have 300 some odd million people in the country. So, yes, it's very difficult for people to say, hey, it's too many people and very little bit of them. So they can make things happen under the guise of business, school, corporations, church, whatever. They use all of these vehicles as tools to make sure that their agenda gets pushed. And the thing is, it's just like me talking to you in this room right now. The ideas that I'm talking to you in here right now. How many people are going to actually take those ideas and go spread it to millions of people? You see what I'm saying? That's hard. It's difficult. That's not something that's easily done unless you have a network, which they have. And that's why whenever we talk about things like that, context is so important. It's one thing to look at things in a vacuum, but it's a mistake. It's a mistake to look at things in a vacuum. You have to look at things in context of how things really are. So yes, if they have plans, agendas, all of that stuff, they make sure they tell the right people these things, and the people that are actually engaging in these things, they're in powerful places. And you're just a customer. So you'll never know what they're actually doing on a higher level unless you're in. That's the only point I'm trying to make here. That these churches, everything that you see, how they put these things together, these things are organized on a higher level, not on the level that me and you understand them. There's no way I could go to that church down the street like, hey man, you down with the agenda? Nope, that's not gonna work. Because that preacher that's sitting there, he may not be down with the agenda. He's just at the fucking church preaching. He may believe it like me and you. But who put that church there? That's the question. Who established that church could get there? You see, that is the difference in what we're talking about here. That's why you need context for all of this stuff. Now, I'm gonna stop on that point right there, and I'm pretty sure people may have some questions. If we do have questions, this is the time to come up. If you want to come up and ask a question or make a comment, I'll open up the floor for that. You know what I'm saying? Right now at this point, if you want to come up, I will open the floor. I'll stop right there. I hope y'all got the message. Those links, as I mentioned, make sure you look at the transatlantic slave trade voyages, $5 Indians. So all of these things all play a part in it. And that's all I'm saying is that you have to pay attention to how they're presenting you the information, cross-reference, and when you cross-reference, you start to see the inconsistencies. And whenever you see inconsistencies, there's a lie there. There's a lie there. Somewhere there's a lie there. They can't tell you there were 4 million slaves when they only brought 300,000 over here in a period of 400 years. And especially when you calculate the birth rate, mortality rate, replacement rate, all of these things. Like, this is just impossible. There's no way. Even today, we couldn't even do that today if we wanted to. You know what I'm saying? So all of these things are important when you look at that. And the fact that they wrote the history books, they wrote just about Aaron, there's no way a baby can tell you your history. You were here first. So to think that a baby can tell you your history is completely absurd. That's like you asking your child where you come from. He can't tell you. So with that being said, I will stop the lecture right there. And for any questions y'all want to build, we can, and go from there. What's good, y'all? What up, Richard, Prolific, or anybody else? Let me see if I invite some other people that may have questions.
What up?
What's good, fam?
Shit, I saw you fucking up with that video you posted up earlier today on Instagram regarding this topic. Did you play that for the room?
Nah, actually I didn't. I might need to, don't I?
Yeah,
but I kind of went over it. I kind of went over that information in here. I didn't play it for the room, but yeah, it's dope, man.
Yeah, no, you did that very beautiful, my brother. I swear you did. I said, damn, it was well done, bro. Perfectly orchestrated.
Yep. And that's my whole thing is that, you know, if people are gonna argue against it, they need to bring facts. Bring facts to counter what I'm saying. Because that's what I brought. I brought facts. You see what I'm saying? I brought the facts that they have laid out, and they expect people to believe it. And it's even if it doesn't make sense. And that's all I'm pointing out. I'm pointing out the fact that they are telling people things that do not make sense. You understand what I'm saying? And people are not questioning it, and they just going about their fucking lives, and they expecting some kind of change to happen. No, it's not going to happen as long as you don't address the lie that you're living. You know what I'm saying? That's the importance of all this shit. Knowing that you've been lied to. A lot of people don't know that they've been lied to. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing.
You know, it's crazy, that number that you pointed out, the 388,000 or 308,000 that came over to the Americas out of the 10.5 million that was brought out of Africa, like we've been told. That number's been actually changed in Virginia to, I believe it was 219 or something like that. Less, or it's less than what that number that you have put out there, the number that they gave us, right? So it goes to question, like, wait a minute, so where do all these millions of people come from in North America, let alone where's the rest of the fucking 10.5 that were taken out of Africa? The numbers don't make sense. The numbers are not adding up.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the part. See, don't nobody want to ask them that. Nobody's saying, nobody's questioning that. That's the problem right there, like you just said. Like, the numbers, the math ain't mathing. You know how we say. The math ain't mathing, but nobody is even questioning them, fam. Like, we just taking the shit. So, what's the importance of that? Let's just look at that for a minute. Why? I'm going to tell you why. Because if you think about it, if you find out that your family is from right here, that means this is your land. Also, as I mentioned earlier, why did they create race? Race is a social construct, but race was created for a reason. To create these borders, to create these natural resources. A separation of the resources, which is a microcosm of what they did on a grander scale when the papal bull gave the Spanish crown the right to go to all these different fucking continents and say, hey, this is yours, and pieced it up. So it's the same way where you got different states, right? So now you go from one state to another, state laws change, and you can't get this land, you gotta go, you know what I mean? All of that is bullshit. All that is bullshit to keep us away from basically getting our shit. You see what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, all you gotta do is look at the immigration records. Look at them. And I mean, when you read this shit, like, it's right there in front of us. When you read it, they tell you that immigration for I don't know how many hundreds of fucking years was basically leaning towards European immigration. They wanted all those people. I mean, shit, Trump just said it the other day. He said, man, we need more people from the fucking Netherlands coming over here. That's the point. They wanted more of that kind, Europeans, immigrating over here before they opened the floodgates to anybody else. Right? So as they let them immigrate over here, they were committing paper genocide, and they were actually committing real genocide. And in doing those things, they changed the whole course of history. Now people are like, man, people don't even know where they come from now. And as a matter of fact, they don't even give a fuck. That's how bad it is. People don't.
Them DNA banks gonna tell them where they from.
And that's the thank you. And that is like the most backwards thing ever, because when you look at the DNA thing, the two least DNA pools that they have, Africa and Native Americans. That is fucking crazy. So all these gene pools they have, most of them are comprised of European and everywhere else. But the two least, now mind you, Africa's a big fucking continent with a lot of billions of people, right? You understand what I'm telling you? That now in the gene pool, these are the two least amount of populations that they have in the gene pool. Africans and Native Americans. How the hell is that even, you know what I mean? That shit people should see that and be like, what the fuck is going on?
You want to know the kicker to that? The Native Americans. The Native Americans somehow, some way in the DNA banks by 50 to 60% are linked to being Mongolian, in fact, or from the Serbian region. So they're not even native to this land themselves. If you go look at the native Indians, right, the indigenous people in Serbia or the Mongolians, go look at their traditional dances. You'll see something really interesting, entirely similar to the native Indians here in America. But what about the Aborigines of America?
Exactly. See, I didn't want to go in. I didn't want to go into that, but since you opened that door, that is a fact, bro. Nah, you good, because that is a fact. That is a fact, and that's the other part of it that, you know, people are in denial about. You know, like the ones that they call Native Americans today, you know what I'm saying, indigenous today, like they actually cut from another cloth. You know what I'm saying? And where they came from, you know, me and War was actually talking about it earlier, you know, where they actually came from, how they got to this side over here, all that's documented. You know what I'm saying? All that's documented. So it's true. I mean, you know, what you saying is true as far as like what they're mixing, where they come from. So clearly there's something there that needs to be explored. You know what I mean? There's something that needs to be explored because, like, again, it goes back to who's really indigenous to the land. And I mentioned it earlier. Even their own anthropologists tell you, we were here before everybody. You melanated? Oh yeah, you tied to that original bloodline. Now the whole thing is this is true. Like we mixed up. We mixed like a motherfucker today. I'm just gonna be honest with you. We are mixed like hell. So yes, in your bloodline, you probably find some European blood somewhere along the line. That ain't no bullshit. You probably have some white in you somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Or it's something. You probably have something in you because, see, prior to the creation of all these social constructs, like I mentioned, before Christopher Columbus went to Haiti, shit, Africans was already there. There was already 3 different tribes of Africans in Haiti before Christopher Columbus even showed up on the scene. So that just goes to show you that we were navigating waters and going to different lands, but, you know, we weren't saying, you know, this is America, this is Mexico. We wasn't doing all that shit. Because to us, land was land. You understand what I'm saying? Like everything was just, we didn't find the need to make it a corporation like what we see it as today. And that's exactly what they did. They took everything and incorporated it, and now they sell us all just what this was about, the natural resources. And that's why they want to hide from you who you really are. Because at the end of the day, when you find out that this land belongs to you, that means all these natural resources that's on it belong to you too. Now, we're very, very far removed from when they took this shit, and that's why they're trying to change everything. That's why all this shit that you see is happening is to get you further and further away from the real truth of the matter at hand, is that this shit that they built on really belongs. How they told us history went down, you know, and let me tell y'all something. You know that whole go back to Africa shit? Do you know that was part of a psyop? That's why they told you that shit. So they could tell you when you were here, say you don't belong here, go back to Africa. Knowing for a fact that even if you chose to go back to Africa, you wouldn't even know where the fuck to go. You see what I'm saying? Making you feel homeless and unwanted. That was what that was all about. Destroying your spirit. Right? And then at the same time, making you say, you know, I ain't going back. Right? It's kind of make you have like a hatred for Africa when you shouldn't even have one. We shouldn't. All of this land is ours. All of it. If you want to tell the truth, there is no such thing as countries. These are all corporations. I'm sorry, brother. You say you're from Nigeria. Nigeria is incorporated. Africa. Man, I'm going to just shut up from right there. All right? But they lied about everything. They lied about it all. And we're here today trying to figure it out. You understand what I'm saying? We're trying to figure it out, but we don't know how to figure this shit out. We don't know. You know what I'm saying? We still kind of lost in the mix of this shit. But the whole point is that once we realize that there is one common enemy, there's one person, I'm not one person per se, but say one bloodline, group of people, whatever they are, whatever you want to call them, that is responsible for dividing us and separating us. Even right here in America, you know, that's so fucking crazy. We here in America fucking killing each other. We killing each other for jewelry. You hear me? For jewelry. I found out something the other day. You know how they got blood diamonds, all this shit? You know, I was talking to a dude. He been in the business for a long time. He said, man, the whole diamond thing is a racket. He said, diamonds don't really have as much worth as they say.
They don't at all. That's the actual fucking truth, bro.
Yo, that shit blew my mind.
You didn't know that, bro? They make
That shit blew my fucking mind when he told me that shit.
Hey, Dr. Black, you didn't know that, man. Diamond is like Bitcoin, man. They ain't got no worth, man. They just making it up.
Mm-hmm.
Put it this way.
Yes.
You got a bunch of diamond now, right? And civilization collapse, right? The diamond will be useless. But if you got silver and gold and civilization collapse, gold and silver has always been the currency, man. Diamond is a made-up crap.
Exactly. And that's what he broke down to me. Because he was like, man, he was like, what did he say? He said something about, man, you know what we do with these diamonds? He said we sell, they go crush them, they use them to put on, like, I think he said like drills or some shit, some bullshit. They did nothing important. I was like, what the fuck? Yeah, he gave me a whole lecture on that shit. How diamonds are, like y'all said, diamonds are basically a Ponzi scheme. The worth of it is made up, B. It's just crazy. And they got motherfuckers killing people for my ice. I got my ice on. You know, all this and that. And then look, it's sad. It's so sad. But what are we going to do when we wake up and realize all this shit was a game?
Yo, bro, we all in the matrix, man. We got to try to get out, man. Based on what you're saying right now, right? You look like you coming out of the matrix.
Hey, yo, Dad, you ready for this, though? You know, when people speak about the matrix, that's the thing. People, you know.
You broke up. I didn't hear you.
He got a phone call.
Yeah, man, it's like you're in the matrix right now and you're digging out, you know what I mean? But yeah, man, a lot of what you said, this is what happened, right? They're mixing truth with lies. I keep telling people that. So some of what they tell you is true. And that's the reason why it's hard for you to drop the lies. Because if you totally drop the lie, you gotta drop it, but you gotta do it smartly, because you're gonna run into another lie. So the numbers that they gave of the transatlantic slave trade, it did happen, but the numbers, they embellished the numbers. Why they do it? Because guess what? When they came here, there was already other Israelites and were here already. There were some other black folks who were already here. On top of that, I'm going to take it a step further. The continent Europe is named after our black queen. Her name is Europa. You can research that. Not only that, one of the biggest football league name of her, Europa. That's a Moor queen. They don't want to tell people this. Even the continent they have, Europe, came from Europa, which was a Moor queen. You see what I'm saying? So they don't want to give us the credit that all civilization came from us. They were late to the game. The universities they have, right? This is how they got universities. That came from the fall of Solomon. He got all that knowledge. So when he fall, his knowledge was so great, they take it, and Alexander the Great put it in universities. So the universities that we go in now say we are wise and all that, that was just the crumbs, which is the worldly wisdom of Solomon, not the spiritual wisdom the Most High gave him. That was just the worldly wisdom that he got left when he fall. And these people take those academic and go around and say, we so wise. Look at people out there. Bro, it's a whole deception. We're living in all a lie. People need to get out the bloody matrix, but people is not going to get out the matrix because, they love the biscuit of the slave masters and they love the life that was given to them. And to come out of the matrix, go back and watch that first movie, Matrix. He's talking about what's going on right now. A lot of people are not going to want to come out of the matrix. It's going to be too hard. And I'm going to land on that.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, go ahead. Finish up, Prolific, because you got cut off before you left.
Yeah, I got a phone call. No, it was interesting. I brought up salaries. People got to understand, like, this whole liberal indoctrination has been taking place in America for the past 150 plus years. Is literally what they've been doing for the past 500 years. And they incorporated the Lesser Keys of Solomon. Shit, this is crazy. They incorporated the Lesser Keys of Solomon into the liberal indoctrination in America to unravel their new world order, right? But it had to begin with something. It began what they called a liberal world order here in America. And it went worldwide the past 100 years. So they break it down systematically. How did they do that? Well, Dr. Black shared something earlier in that Instagram video I was speaking on regarding Abraham Lincoln. You have to remember, Abraham Lincoln did not, in fact, free the slaves, or who they called the slaves, for their liberty and rights. It did it because it was the beginning of the liberal world order, and they had to bring all of them to one and make one all. And by doing so, they had to do it the way they've been doing it. And now it's being exposed on a grander scale. So when, these type of topics come up, people are confused or they're baffled or they start becoming combative because 99.9% of this knowledge has been hidden. I won't say lost, but has been hidden from us. And knowing that, when you listen to Malcolm X speak about the liberal being, and then Henry Ford, and many people today, like Alexander Dugin, the man that his daughter was just killed in that assassination attempt in Moscow. I mean, you gotta understand, these are people that are speaking out against the system that created this world we live in today 500 plus years ago. Because this system it's brand new in a sense. It's not ancient. But they did it using the lesser keys of Solomon, while they hold the higher keys of Solomon above our heads. And we don't even realize it. But understanding the eugenic system as well, and how that was incorporated through the liberal indoctrination in America, you'll come to understand that you've been lied to about almost every damn thing in your life, except the fact who's your mother or who's your father. in that sense. Because who are we? For example, I can say I'm Puerto Rican. I've been lied to when I was younger. When I was told that the Taínos were extinct. Until I come to find out, when I was 17 years old, when I went to Puerto Rico for my second time, no, they're not extinct. In fact, the Taínos go from Trinidad and Tobago all the way up to West Virginia. So, a lot of people get confused about certain Indians and Aboriginal people by looking Hispanic, or certain Hispanics looking like the Native Americans, this and that. Folks, this has been going on for hundreds of years. So we don't know exactly who the hell we are, where we're from, except that we know where we're at and where we're standing at right now.
That's a
divide
fact.
And conquer. You understand, Dr. Black? And the divide and conquer has been unfolded for so long that where do we start right now with this, right? I think we're doing good right now by doing our research and figuring out who we are as a being, as an individual, and as a family collectively. Because as Dr. Black pointed out, there were African tribes already on the island of Hispaniola, what they call Hispaniola, Dominican Republic and Haiti and all that. But what about all the other islands around them? You don't think those were their family members as well? See, there's certain things we have to put into factor here when we break this down, right, Dr. Black? Because people have to begin to understand that 6 degrees of separation is a little bit less than that. And we're all related. We've just been divided. That's why I brought up the Native Americans and the Mongolians and the Serbians earlier, and that connection. People really have to begin to understand this shit. You gonna come out the matrix if you can understand this. I'm gonna land my mic. I gotta get back to work, y'all.
Yeah, that's a good point, brother. And that's the thing that, you know, even in my doing my own genealogy years ago, I started back in 2005. Was it 95? I'm talking about 1995. Damn, 1995. I actually went to Haiti and started my genealogy, and you know that's when I learned about the Taínos. They have still, and a lot of people, you know, there's still Taínos around. They actually have Taínos going all the way down to South America that actually still talk the native language of the Arawak. You know what I'm saying? They're still down there. I have family that goes way down there. I have family that actually came to the Americas shortly after Haiti's independence, came to the Americas as free black people, actually came to the Americas, helped fight in the Revolutionary War. This was new to me. And they were, I guess what you would, it's another word, but what you would call like kind of like mulatto, but they helped fight here in the United States, and family that went up to Illinois and settled up there as well. And so like Haitians and Taino, all of that culture there, again, when you go back to years upon years of years ago, before all of these borders were completely set up the way that they are now, these people been traveling these lands for years. And as I mentioned, there were Africans already in Haiti before even Columbus even thought about bringing them here. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of history that we don't even know about ourselves. Because like I was, you know, and learning all of that stuff, my mind was blown. You know what I'm saying? And doing my genealogy, and it's a lot of work. It's not easy. You know, you have to travel a lot. The stuff ain't gonna be just available on the internet, and a lot of these documents and paperwork are old. Some of them are, you can't even read them. Can't even read some of this paperwork. And so but that's why I implore people to do this stuff now, because there's gonna come, like they're trying to digitize a lot of stuff to, I guess, to kind of save from the stuff wearing down. But at the same time, with digitizing it, you have an opportunity to manipulate, get rid of stuff like that. So, you know, I implore people, like, start doing your genealogy now. Start it now. Try to get as far as you can now before that information is not even available. And it's going to be expensive. It's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. You know what I mean? This is true. It's not going to be easy. But you still have to do it because, again, it gets you closer to who you are, where you're from, and may help you day to day because they don't know what their purpose is. You know what I'm saying? But once you find out who you are, then, you know, you probably start living life differently. I know I did. I know once I found out who I was, I didn't care about a lot of this other stuff. I changed my life like upside down. There was a point I was into all of this stuff. Fancy cars, clothes, all of that stuff. But once I found out that I was indigenous, I was like, man, shit, I want my fucking land. I want my shit. I have people that actually contributed to, you know what I mean, the establishment of this country. I didn't think that before. Before I was under the guise of, oh, we were brought over here slaves. That's what all I thought. Until something clicked in me and said, you know what? Go find out. I don't even know what it was. I just did it. And then as I did it, I started learning more about myself, learning more about my indigenous connections to, again, not just to the Caribbean, but here in America. That shit blew my mind. You know? It's different from when you think that the Revolutionary War was fought by fucking Europeans. Come to find out black people was in this shit. Fought for this shit. Was actually owned this shit too. You know what I mean? Like literally. A lot of people, just check. Then you'll be surprised. You'll be like, damn. When you start seeing your name pop up in the record books, your family's name, when you trace your lineage, you see your family's name popping up in shit that owns shit. For real. Here. That gives you a different perspective. That gives you a different agenda. That makes you want to, you know what I mean, get this shit right. Because if they get it right, then you got what's coming to you. That's why I teach my children this shit. And again, just think about it. Me, what my connections are, and then say my wife, who's also indigenous, she got family from Georgia and all kind of places that's just been here all their fucking lives. That own hundreds of acres. They own hundreds of acres now, but imagine what they owned before then. You know what I mean? Like that means that my kids, they get a double whammy. They get to get reparations and land from my side and reparations land from their mother's side. That shit, they got it made. If you think about it. If we actually pursue this thing the way we're supposed to pursue it, instead of sitting back and waiting for other people to make the decision for whether or not we can get something. And they came here after us, man. That doesn't make sense. That's like watch this. I'm going to give you a perfect example. That's like somebody stole your pocketbook, ladies. And then when you find they stole your pocketbook, they say, okay, well, I'm going to give you back this. They still got your pocketbook, but they say they're going to give you back, I'm going to give you back $5 out your pocketbook. What the fuck? Give me my whole goddamn pocketbook back, goddamn. It's my shit. That's the attitude we need to have. You know what I'm saying? But we are far from there right now because, I just think a lot of people don't know their history and they don't know where to start. And because their parents or whoever may have dropped the ball, it's kind of like they don't know. No, like, start some fucking where. Start where you're at. Start wherever they told you your family was at. Just start looking that shit up, man. It's gonna take time. Yeah, it's not easy. That's the one thing about this shit. It's like, yes, they put a needle in the haystack. Exactly. That's exactly how it is. And you just have to just keep searching. Be diligent in your search. That is it. And be sincere and diligent in your search. Be wanting to learn. Don't mind spending time sitting down at the library just poring over books. Yeah, you might not come out with nothing. But it's like what happened with me. I was getting clues. I would sometimes run into a dead end, but I would still have like certain clues. I would write some shit down, then I go someplace else, and I end up having to match it up with the shit that I thought wasn't related anyway. Because that's how that shit be. They be like, let me tell y'all, they will change names. Like you may have a last name that ends with an S, but they ended it with a P. You know what I'm saying? And yes. And you think that's not true, but that's not. No, they didn't spell back then. I'm gonna give you a quick story. Beyonce's mom, right? When I read her story, I was like, oh, I know what she's talking about because I seen it. But her last name was damn, I forgot. No, it's Beyonce's okay, not Beyonce's name, Beyonce, but their last name was, her mother's last name was Beyonce or some shit like that. And so she said that when her and her brother, one had Beyonce, one had Beyonce. So she was like, she asked her mother, like, which one? She was like, oh yeah, they spelled yours wrong. She's like, let's go get it changed. She said, her mother said, I tried to get it changed, but when I went to the hospital, they said they weren't going to change it because I was black. Look that story up. This is a true story. Beyonce's mom by her last name. She said they wouldn't change. And so she was like, she was like, oh man, that's messed up. Because she was black, they would not change the fucking birth certificate or they was going to lock her up or some crazy shit like that. That's fucked up. That's how the world was back then. However you got your birth certificate, that's it, man. This is done data, as is. Like you buying an as is vehicle. No refunds, no nothing. So
That's facts, Doc.
yeah.
Real quick.
Good.
My family, I traced my family back to the early 1800s, and they went from Williamson to the last name of Williams within like 70 or 80 years. And I asked my family why, and nobody knows why. And as you was explaining, it makes sense because they didn't spell back then. Because you were black, they weren't changing birth certificates. But yeah, my family went from Williamson to Williams within 70 years.
Yep. That's how it was. That's how it was, man. You know what I'm saying? And so that's how they got this stuff all screwed up. Is that, you know, we were considered like the lower, like you were even lucky to get a birth certificate. I'm just keeping it 100 with you. Like being born here, you were lucky to get a birth certificate. All right. That's just how it was, man. It's fucked up, but you know, like I mentioned, man, you go looking, and some of the stuff that you think may not apply, it will apply to you. You know, whether it's a relationship or something, it will apply. If you go digging, you'll find that connection. It's really weird, and that's another thing I learned about this shit too. Like, the world is okay. Yes, it's 7 billion people, but the world is really small. Like, it is really, really small. You will be surprised. Especially if you start traveling the world and shit, you start bumping into motherfuckers like, what the fuck? I just saw you over here. Like, it's crazy, but yeah. You know what I mean? It's just, you know, hey, man. I don't know, man. This whole thing, the way they got it, bro, it's fucked up, but, you know, we got a way out this shit. It's just going to keep it 100, man. And it's going to depend on us not giving up. So work like what we just discussed in this room today, as far as with, you know, checking their facts. You got to fact check them. When you look at the like I mentioned, all the stuff that we looked at today, and you know, when you look at this stuff, it doesn't add up. But then the fact that it doesn't add up, you being a logical, critical thinker, you're gonna want the shit to add up, which means you're gonna find the answers. And then going to search the answers, that's when all the stuff is revealed to you. And that's why we'll stop arguing with the Africans, we'll stop arguing with Indigenous Americans, and we'll start looking at who the real enemy is the people who are in control of all this information, the people that's standing here trying to tell you where you from. I hate that. I hate the fact they have to tell you where you're from. And we don't see anything wrong with that. That is appalling to me. That they are the ones who are in control of telling us our history. Like, we should be, man. So I'll just leave it at that, y'all. Anybody else? What's up, Tia? What's up, my sister? How you doing? Glad you could come up here. I see you was mentioning some stuff. Oh, you ran into Boris Kojo? Oh, wow. I see some good comments. Let's see. From 1670 to 1720, more Indians were shipped out of Charleston, South Carolina than Africans were imported as slaves. Yep, that's true. And Charleston was a major port for bringing it. Exactly. I mentioned that earlier. You know, they got them brothers from Chucktown, them Geechee, boy. Hey, boy. They got it. I bet, hey, you, man, if you get on this journey, you probably make a stop in Charleston, South Carolina. There's a lot of history down there, African history, for real. Like, they actually got them people down there still talking boy, look. And they don't play down there in Chucktown neither, boy. They got that real spirit down there. They don't play. I've been down there, boy. It's crazy. They taught that Geechee down there. Geechee, boy. When you got Chucktown, there's another spot down there too, man. What the name of that shit is? It's some rich history down Beaufort, Georgia. Fucking, they got a nice little golf thing down there too. I done been down there. It's a lot of history down there, man. You'll see. You be like, damn, man, we been here, boy. We been here. Anybody else, y'all? Anybody else? Been good room. I appreciate everybody coming through, listening in to the lecture and, then coming through and contributing. Make sure you hit that link tree. Follow all the links on that link tree. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna post this up on the YouTube and all that other stuff. So if y'all want to watch it, y'all can. I really didn't even get a chance to share the visuals with this like I wanted to, but I guess we'll get to it next time. I don't really have a production team yet, but we'll get there one day. Any other questions, comments, anything, y'all? I appreciate all the comments in the chat. Let me see what we got in the chat. What else we got? Anything else? All right. See, Tia said 12.5 million. Yeah, that's not a lot of people. That's the other thing too. That's what I did have a question about that. If we put this in the real context, right? Think about this. How in the hell are we in the position that we in? When, think about this for a minute. This is a serious question, but we can all leave the room with, and you think about it on your own. Right? There's billions of us. 12 million, and we could go back to, let's just say even go back to during those old times. Right? Go back during those old times, right? If you think about it. Even then, there's still billions of people on the planet. How did we allow the enslavement of 12 to 13 million people? How did we allow that to basically hold down an entire group of people, man? How did we, think about that. How the hell did we allow that to happen? Like, it's something, you know what I mean? It's gotta be, it's deeper than fucking slavery. All right? Yeah, sellouts, race traders, yeah.
I got a question. What up? Peace, y'all. Peace to the room. Yo, son, so what's the solution, though? All right, we know all this, right? What's the solution? How can we utilize that today? And what we going through right now as a people with our communities? How can we mobilize that? That's the question.
That's an individual. To me, I think it's individual. Anybody else, y'all got a question, answer to that question? How the information we heard today?
What was the question?
I had the same question though, because like I feel like we can talk about the big
You breaking up? You breaking up? You breaking up, Tia?
Did you hear anything, or I'm for connection?
We barely heard anything. The only thing we heard was you said you had the same question.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah.
You sound better now. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that, it just seems like we can talk about this rhetoric and go back and forth all day about history or whatever. But, like, okay, so you convinced everybody to determine, no, we're not Africans, we're indigenous to America, and we got some other kind of blood in our veins. So then what? What is the purpose of that? Well, what is it going to do? What is there a plan to do based on that? What?
Well, it's like I said earlier. Once people get out of that mindset of, us against us, then you start to shift. It's kind of like for me personally, once I found that out, I basically changed my life. I don't pursue life the way I used to before I knew this information. So that's why to me personally, if anybody's looking for a one-size-fits-all solution, you don't know what's going on. There is no one size.
It's not even about a one size. It's about any solution, because I don't hear a solution. I just hear people talking rhetoric and like coming up with things to just talk about, but not really. I mean, and then you start talking about proof and everything. Then yeah, we can pull out books or we can pull out artifacts or whatever. But at the end of the day, I mean, what is that really accomplishing?
Well, ain't you an attorney? What do people use rhetoric? What do you people use rhetoric for in the court of law?
We can't use rhetoric in the court of law because that's called speculation. Speculation is not admissible in court.
I mean, but you're making an argument to convince people, right?
I'm saying,
But
like,
you gotta have the facts to back it up. You gotta have the the
say
proof
something,
and the
y'all. Let me
facts
say
to
something.
back
I'm
it
saying
up.
like, hold on. I'm saying like create a site where people could go actually and then get to retrieve the information so people can start researching. Like how we gonna bring people together to say, yo, this is who we are. This is what we need to do. They their enemy. We need to get back our communities. Shit like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Or tell them they gotta go. You gotta go back to Europe. We know for a fact that this is not their shit. We can all agree that the people who were here before Columbus popped up or whatever, but I think Columbus didn't even come to the United States. But before them people came over here, we can all agree that they were brown-skinned people, not white-skinned people. Is that a consensus that we can all come to, or is there going to be...
Yeah, we could definitely say that.
Okay, so when the brown-skinned people, regardless of whether they're African, Latino, Native American, Indigenous, whatever, y'all brown-skinned people. So when we're going to do something about that and say, well, look, y'all done jacked this place up and you're going all the way overboard now. So guess what? You gotta go. I mean,
I'm gonna tell you. I like what you saying. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
Now that's part of the plan, and maybe I can get down with it and be like, yeah, I'm gonna deny my African ancestry in favor of that. Yes, I will. But I don't see that going on.
But I know that's what I'm saying. That all over the world, wherever we at though, right? Even in Africa, African countries, Haiti's a brown country, Jamaica's a brown. All these brown countries where they have brown government, it's still all this bullshit going on. There's not a bunch of Europeans for them to exit out of those countries, even though we know there's a European influence on them.
Right.
So, but it's like, to me, that's why I say, like, it's more so individual. To me, I think it's a mindset. I don't think it's even, it's a mindset, and I don't think everybody's gonna get that mindset. I think it is again, the same way it took hundreds of years to get us in this shit. We're not getting out of this shit in 40 years. This shit has to be taught. The truth basically has to be taught. The way that we're teaching it right now, we're all learning it right now as we getting this stuff. Like my children need to know this shit. When they go to school and my children need to be, oh hell no, that ain't the fucking truth. Like all of these lies need to be exposed, and we may not live to see the change. I'm just gonna be 100 with you. We may not live to see the change, and that's what we have to be able to live with, that right there. But at the same time, stay vigilant in the fact that, we're not going to allow these lies to continue to be spread. That's the solution that I see. I really don't see a solution now to where everybody's going to get on the same page. That shit has to be taught over a bunch of years consistently before we even get there. You know what I'm saying? So, like, conversations like...
We have 100 years.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we probably don't.
Somebody got a question in the crowd, man. In my opinion. If somebody in the crowd, Big Ben got a question, bring him up.
Who? Big Ben?
Big Bang. Big Bang.
Okay, come on up, Big Ben. Big Bags. Gotcha.
Like weed dyslexia.
But yeah, me personally, I don't see that at all. We some of us is just too far in this shit. You know what I'm saying? You see niggas killing each other for jewelry, women, all that dumb shit. Them niggas ain't nowhere close to getting no consciousness.
I mean, I think that's the first problem that we got to deal with. First and foremost is ridding our community of that bullshit and of that negativity, period.
Yep.
I think that's where our energy should be focused, and that's what we need to be nipping in the bud first before anything else, because that is our detriment. That is our downfall. There's no way. Huh? How can you do it?
How can we do that? Yeah, the reason why
we gotta start ostracizing people. We gotta start ostracizing and shaming these people who sit up here and promote hatred against their own people, who promote